Then Don Jr. Okay. Don Jr. was one of Charlie's friends, like brother, literally a brother. Don Jr., by the way, I would say was one of the people who very much helped to build Turning Point USA. He was there. Okay. He did a ton of college campus events with me and Charlie. And we were always so grateful. I remember when Don Jr. started following me, I have the text messages with Charlie. I was like, oh my, Don Jr. is following me. This is amazing. He would retweet me. The beginning of the Candace story includes Don Trump Jr. being probably, without question actually, the most committed Trump family member to Turning Point USA's early story, okay? And like I said, I know how Charlie felt about Don Trump Jr. So when Megyn Kelly asked him what he thought about the investigation into Charlie's assassination, I was expecting him to say, I think it's crap. But that is not what he said. In fact, he did his best not to answer the question, as you'll see, and then Megyn Kelly holds him to it, and then you'll hear what he says. Take a listen.
How do you feel about the investigation into Charlie's death? Can we have faith in it? Do you feel like it's being well handled?
So far, listen, so far so good. I think, I've had this conversation with a lot of the guys that have been, very involved from the beginning, and, others that are a big part of that movement that are, are going to take, more of a role. Guys like JD, like, hey, he believes we have to keep this going. People, myself, hey, I did a lot of them, but I got to do even more. We got to keep this going. There's never going to be a replacement for Charlie Kirk. You can't plug that in. But if we can find 10 people that can do 10% of what he did, and they go all in and do that, we can keep that alive. And honestly, we all owe that to him.
Just to round back, do you have confidence in the investigation? Should we have confidence in this FBI investigating?
I do. And I mean, I don't know. I don't like it when the people have the private, but I've spoken to everyone, around, and, Erica, and I do have confidence. And, when I start seeing some of the other stuff, it's like, man, and by the way, just so we're clear, as you all probably know, if you're here, you probably follow me a little bit. Like, I'm about as conspiratorial as it gets within the realm of sanity for good cause, right? I think I was the guy that first said, like, the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is usually about 6 months. I was the guy canceled for pushing all of the obvious things that were conspiracy theories that, Wuhan or whatever it may be, lab virus leak. The problem is that there is a cottage industry of just clicks and people that are more than happy to profiteer off of that. Again, I'm not saying that a lot of this stuff isn't real and isn't true, and I've been pushing all of that, but some of the stuff does get a little bit off the rails, and I think, you're really, it's been used even by the other side as a way to distract from the bigger picture of what happened to him, of what the other side has proven that they are actually willing to do.
Man, oh man, so much I want to say to that clip. Okay, the first thing that I want to say is that Don Trump Jr. is not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. Don Trump Jr. is probably maybe akin in some ways to Mikey McCoy. I look at Mikey McCoy, I don't know Mikey McCoy at all, and I don't think he's an evil person. I think he is in the shadow of his father, right? I think he's in the shadow of his father. I think Don Jr. has been probably in the shadow of his father his entire life, because what he's saying when he begins to credentialize himself and said, oh, I was up at the Wuhan, said this about COVID, blah, blah, that's all true. That's the real Don Trump Jr. He was actually one of the people that was the most vocal about the Jeffrey Epstein files until Dad said, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And that's what I mean when I say someone who is in the shadow of his father. And it's a tough situation to be in. So I do want to be charitable in terms of thinking of that particular dynamic when Dad is saying this needs to be done, and you have to carry on knowing that you had a real relationship with Charlie, because you did have a relationship with Charlie. But Don, from me to you, it's better to say nothing, okay? It's better to say, I'm just not going to answer that question. The best way you could honor Charlie Kirk, if you can't fight for him for some reason, is to simply say nothing. Because I looked at this clip and it bothered me for a lot of reasons, Don, because I know who you are. I know who you are. You're a hunter. You love to hunt, Don, right? Every picture of you, you're in the wilderness. Your whole life, you love to be in the wild. In fact, you taught me a lot about the wild and a lot about hunting. And my favorite fishing experience is actually with you, right? Fighting back the sea lions or the seals in British Columbia. You know nature. And I'm not going to ask you to go back against the nature of honoring your father, but I am going to ask you not to lie. And as a hunter, if you are not lying, and this is truly what you believe, you trust the investigation, I'm going to need you to make a video saying that you believe that Charlie was shot by a 30-06 in the neck. And that somehow, through the miracle of God, Charlie's neck stopped a 30-06. Not only stopped a 30-06, but was pretty much in good shape, not even destroyed. His neck was not even destroyed by a 30-06. That kind of a miracle, Don. You know hunting, you know guns, and so I'm asking you if this is truly what you believe to clarify that matter. Make a video, sit down with me, look me in the eye and say, Candace, I really do think that Charlie, our friend, because you are his friend, you were his brother, stopped a 30-06 with his neck, which stayed intact. You won't say that, Don. You won't say that because it's untrue. And I think that spiritually it would mess with you. And the hunters that are listening know that you don't believe that. You know too much.
Let's just talk about this whole issue one more time. Because like I have said in many of the videos that I have done about this issue, is that we are not going to stop talking about this anytime soon. So everyone must get themselves comfortable with hearing us talking about this. Charlie's death is something that will be talked about time and time and time again. It's not going to end anytime soon. One other thing I really hate to see is when influential people, powerful people, play the victim card, play the powerless card. You can hear what Don is saying here in this clip. Remember, Don is the son of the President of the United States. His father is the most powerful person in the whole world. They have the best of everything. Yet still, they cannot provide us with a convincing narrative as to what happened to Charlie. Or better still, why did the person whom they accuse of doing the crime did the crime? Why did he do the crime? What was his whole beef with Charlie? They still cannot give us, when I say they, I mean the FBI or the different security agencies in America, cannot still give us a convincing reason why Charlie was taken down. They still cannot. Don is asked a straightforward question. Should we be hoping that the government is providing us with credible information? Should we trust the government that they will get to the bottom of this issue? And you can hear him stuttering, okay, and anytime a smooth talker starts stammering, knows that he is going to lie. Or maybe he doesn't want to lie, but at the same time doesn't want to say the truth. Because remember, the first time Megyn Kelly asked him about this, he dodged the question. But when Megyn keep on pushing on this question, he had no choice than to say, yeah, of course, maybe we know we can trust them. Yeah, maybe we can, What does all this tell you? When someone starts saying, yes, we could, all those things, right? They are not being straightforward. They are in a tight corner and they are just trying to wiggle themselves out of that tight corner. They are not being straightforward at all. And that was the same thing Don was doing here. I watched a similar interview with his younger brother, Eric. That interview was done by PBD. And they asked him about the same thing. What could have really gone wrong? Who could have really been responsible for this? And is the FBI doing their best to lock down on this whole thing? And Don's response was like, the radical left have always tried to do things like this to us. They have radicalized every single person, and they are the ones in charge of it. That wasn't the question. But he quickly shifted the conversation to the radical left. He did not bother to answer the questions that was asked to him. No, he started blaming the radical left and everybody. But remember, his father is the most popular person in America. And I always ask people this question, okay, and I'm being very honest about it. Could you begin to imagine how this whole thing would have looked like had it been that Kamala was in power rather than Donald Trump? If the Democrats were in the White House and this happened to Charlie, have you or can you begin to imagine how the Republicans would have blown it out of proportion? They would have screamed at the top of their voices, which they have the right to do. I'm not saying that if a Democrat were in power, or if the Democrats were in power, and this happened to Charlie, and we are getting the same flimsy excuses as we are getting from the FBI, the Republican commentators shouldn't speak out, shouldn't be outraged. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they would have shouted until they get what they want. Better still, all hell would have been let loose. They wouldn't have given any grace to the Democrats. They wouldn't have. And I hate it when people come out here and say that the crime was committed by a radical leftist. There is no proof as to that. But the Republicans or the conservatives wouldn't stop just pointing that to us every single time. Every single time. And Candice is right. Candice is right. There are times when people are wrong, and there are times when people are right. And in this particular case, Candice is super, super right. And I have to say this, with all honesty, if there's one person who have championed this whole issue about Charlie, that person is Candice. She has been on the forefront of this whole issue. She has screamed at the top of her voice. And I'm sure she has gotten herself into a lot of problems with people who do not appreciate what she is saying. I'm sure about that. I'm sure that a lot of things will start going wrong in her life because people who don't like her exposing what really happened to Charlie will try their best to stop her. That is what they have always done. And the last thing I have to say about this, and I tell people, Politicians are never your friends. Politicians are never there for the common person. I know sometimes we deceive ourselves into thinking that by us supporting politicians, they will support us. Or by us liking them, honestly liking them, they like us. That is how we have convinced ourselves into thinking. And we honestly believe that. But the reality is, politicians care only about themselves, never about us. And they will never do anything that will benefit only us. Whatever they do benefits them and then by extension us. That is the honest truth. They never do anything that benefits us only. They will never ever do it. Charlie was a close friend to Donald Trump. And when he was taken out, Donald Trump was asked, "How are you feeling? How has the whole Charlie's assassination affected your life?" And Donald Trump's response was, "Oh, I'm fine, and the ballroom is going to be great. And many others have tried to do something like that, but they couldn't. And I am the only one who have succeeded in getting this done." Remember, he was asked about his friend Charlie, someone who was publicly taken down. And his response quickly shifted to a ballroom. You see how little they think about you? You see how little they care about you.